TECHDOG is a masterpiece in sound design and auditory storytelling. There's nothing quite like it. It's genuinely some of the most surreal, most experimental, most beautiful music I have ever heard. It unironically transcends music at times. Before I spend however long this video is explaining why I believe that, I would strongly recommend listening to it first. The whole thing. All 12 and a half hours of it. I have linked it in the description. A few weeks ago, on a Thursday, a 25-minute album named TECHDOG 1 was released on the Patricia Taxxon YouTube channel. I didn't have time to listen to it on that specific afternoon, so I waited until the following day to check it out. By then, a second installment, TECHDOG 2, had been released. I clicked on the first volume, and nothing could have prepared me for what followed. Immediately, the chipper tone of the first song set a pleasant tone. I don't listen to a lot of music of this genre, but I made an exception for this, because it had promise. The cheerful tone was supported by the peppy album art and the description of feeling excitement. As the album progressed, many interesting auditory ideas and catchy melodies were introduced, such as this one. Remember this one. However, there is an exception to this theme of positivity. Halfway through, this one comes on. This change is a bit odd. In the middle of such cheerful music, this harrowing piece of ambient sound design inserts itself and sticks out. It's probably nothing of note. After all, this volume does end with one of the most upbeat songs of the whole thing. It's positive, it's hopeful, the future will be bright. And in the comments, a comment from Patricia Taxxon was pinned saying that 4 volumes were planned and were going to be uploaded in the following days. After finishing the first volume, I moved on to the second. This one was twice as long, hitting a 48-minute length. The songs were longer, each being about 4 minutes rather than 2. The light and playful atmosphere carried through. The album art was still adorable. The description was in a similar vein to the first volume, that being the phrase of feeling curiosity. While the songs in both of these albums were certainly experimental, including creative usages of vocals and harsh mechanical noises, they were still some of the best pieces of ambient music I've heard in a long time, at a similar level to even the Minecraft soundtrack. It also features the return of the melody I mentioned from Volume 1, being built on and expanded upon. Perhaps the reason it resonated so much with me was the similarities that can be drawn between it and the Portal 2 soundtrack, which, if you take a look at my other videos, you'd know I'm a bit obsessed with. TECHDOG 2 ends on a similar note to that track from the middle of TECHDOG 1. Dark, brooding, and not positive. Again, it's probably nothing. The next day, I eagerly awaited listening to the third volume, and it did not disappoint. Clocking in at an hour and 11 minutes, it was the longest so far. Again, adorable album art. Again, a description describing positive emotions, that being feeling at ease. Again, each song was, on average, 2 minutes longer than the last. It opens with this absolute banger. Remember this one too, it will be coming back. The final song is quite peaceful. It also features the second reprise of that melody from the first volume. The cheerful tone, however, is somewhat tainted. There's a bit of a dark hidden undertone, or at least one that isn't cheerful anymore, that's present in all of the songs, instead of just being limited to one song placed at an arbitrary point. That sample I just played takes the melody the listener is, by now, quite familiar with and mutilates it. It isn't quite right, and it, contrary to the description, makes you feel a bit uneasy. Overall, it's thematically building on the last 2 volumes. There isn't a whole lot for me to say beyond that, just that it's good, solid ambient background music that's right for anyone to analyze for any number of reasons. As expected, TECHDOG 4 came out the next day. I listened to it and, as expected by now, it was amazing. You know the drill by now. Cute album art, cheerful description of feeling like myself, and each song being about 2 minutes longer than they were in the last album, with a total album length of 1.5 hours, and all 4 volumes adding up to 4 straight hours. TECHDOG 4 is primarily more of the same. That's not to say it's bad. In fact, it's brilliant and probably some of the best music TECHDOG has to offer, but it isn't anything we haven't seen before. This one is also home to more vocals than the others, providing a much more personal experience from how the artist feels. The darker undertones do remain, but they are overpowered by the stronger and more cheerful tone, almost like they're trying to hide them. The last song is quite melancholy, feeling like a proper send-off to this massive project the artist took on. It slowly builds with gradual intensity from grinding electronic noises that resemble horns. By the end, it takes a darker turn, as if to reflect how this journey is now over. In the comments, Patricia left a comment thanking the viewers for the kind reception and how the next day she would release a compilation of all 4 volumes as one YouTube video. I eagerly look forward to this. I enjoy long music compilations probably too much, and having all 4 of these albums as one massive 4-hour video sounded wonderful. However, the next day, when I checked to see if the video was there, I was greeted by TECHDOG 5 is not what I was expecting. It wasn't what the audience was told to expect. It took me, and probably most of the people who've been following TECHDOG up until this point, completely by surprise. It marks a significant tonal shift up until this point. Something's changed. This is not happy. This is not cheerful. This is a completely different beast. For starters, the presentation, what we've gotten used to, has taken a complete 180. The only thing that remains is that, again, each of the songs is about 2 minutes longer than the last, with the whole album clocking in 1 hour and 53 minutes. The description reads feeling fear, and the character on the album art isn't happy anymore. Colors are inverted, and she looks terrified. The most dramatic change, however, is the music itself. TECHDOG 5 opens with a dark, grim piece of ambient sound design that builds and dismantles upon itself for its duration. This theme of harsh, foreign sound isn't exclusive to this song, but rather carries through the whole volume. Each song starts by introducing a basic musical concept, and it slowly builds in intensity over the duration of the song. Some songs don't harbor specifically negative sounds, but rather just neutral ones that aren't really positive or negative. One thing's for sure though, none of these songs are happy, none are cheerful. There are some specific tracks I'd like to examine from this volume though. First, the 6th track. I searched, and while I don't believe the song is a callback to a previous song, it still provides a hint of hope through its harsh and dirty synth melody. Next is the 10th track, one of my personal favorites from the whole of TECHDOG. The first half starts off similar to the rest of Volume 5, but the second half evolves into a transformative melody, and it just has a feeling that I do not know how to put into words. Take a listen. The last one that I wanted to focus on is the last one of the album. This one is by far the darkest and the harshest of the whole volume. It keeps building in intensity, but at a speed and strength not seen in the previous song. It's legitimately so much better. After listening to this volume, I did not know what to expect next. Would this be the last one? Would there be another set of 4 volumes, all with this dark, moody tone? Or would it be entirely something else? TECHDOG 6 answers that question with a resounding neither. Opening with a track of almost entirely raw noise, it greatly evolves on the horrific nature seen in the 5th volume. This is not music anymore. This is barely even ambient. This is auditory torture. The album art is, as expected, building on the last one, showing the character seemingly tripping. The description reads, feeling pain. This volume is 2 hours and 14 minutes long, featuring 11 songs that are all about 12 minutes long. And, with the exception of the first track, they are all like this. TECHDOG 6's first 10 tracks fall into 2 categories, the noise and the quieter songs. both of which instill a distinct feeling of horror and dread in the listener. While tracks of both categories do build and evolve over their respective runtimes, it's almost too far gone to count. The 10th track, I believe, serves as a direct callback to the first track of Volume 5, albeit ramping up more dramatically than most of Volume 5's tracks. Reminding the listener that they've been listening to this auditory nightmare for nearly as long as they listened to the bright, cheerful tones of TECHDOG 1 through 4. But what really brings it all together is the last track. Context, you've just listened to about 4 hours of this, and you're almost done with the second volume of this, and you don't know what to possibly expect next. At first, this last track seems like just another quieter one, with little noises coming and going between larger pauses of pure silence. As more and more of these play, a soft synth melody begins to present itself. It's different from what we've seen up until this point. It's mournful. But it can only play after these horrible screeches leave, which in turn gradually leave a larger impact as they come and go. Eventually, these noises begin to recede, and another horrible noise starts to bubble up. Eventually reaching its peak at what almost sounds like a scream, and what follows is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful pieces of music to have ever been composed. It's over. You're free. The horrors are over. You're in the clear, and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's goddamn beautiful. As the energy begins to die down, you finally feel peace. You can rest. It's okay. You'll be fine. And, as the TECHDOG 6 winds to an end, making you wonder what could possibly come next, you're hit with this. TECHDOG 7 is one of the most deeply surreal musical experiences I have ever had. It shatters all expectations and provides a wholly unique listening experience that really can't be found elsewhere. It is so aggressively experimental that it makes the previous 8 hours of music look like Beethoven. If you want to pause the video now and listen to it, do it. All I can say is that it is not what you are expecting and is probably experienced best if you listen to the prior 8 hours of music. I know it seems odd to offer a spoiler warning for music, but this is your last chance to pause the video and listen to the whole album for yourself. Trust me, it's worth it. TECHDOG 7 functions as the middle ground between the first 4 hours of light peppiness and the middle 4 hours of brooding darkness. Its description reads, feeling nothing, and the character isn't exhibiting any strong emotion, but rather a completely neutral stance over two solid blocks of color, with those being a first for TECHDOG's album covers. Additionally, it's 4.5 hours long, 2 whole hours longer than if it had followed the pattern established by the previous 6 volumes. We haven't even gotten to the actual songs yet. What you're hearing right now is the first song of Volume 7. It's Nothing. This first song is almost 14 minutes of complete silence with occasional melodies haunting the listener. I'm going to be going through this whole volume song by song because it deserves it. The second song follows mostly the same formula, except that it's 15 minutes long this time. The same goes for the third, except that it's 17 minutes long. The fourth is almost the same, but it builds into a very soft and reflective synth melody by the end. The fifth is similar. It starts out very quiet, but builds into a very hesitant and ambient piano melody over soft synths, building a deeply surreal atmosphere, and it clocks in at 22 minutes. It's frankly brilliant. The sixth is almost entirely static, lasting for 25 minutes. However, throughout the track, recordings play of Patricia calling someone, presumably a past lover, and attempting to re-establish contact. It sounds corny, and maybe it is a little corny, but it's profound and I love it for that. As someone who, as you might be able to tell from the fact this video exists, has never been in a relationship. I cannot relate to this, nor can I do it justice in trying to analyze it. Moving on from that one, the 7th song is another slow burn synth melody over dead silence. This one is without explanation. It's profound in its 27 minutes of minimalism. The 8th is similar, but also more active, featuring harsh metallic noises reminiscent of volumes 5 and 6. But this time, it's different. It's atmospheric, it's peaceful, it's okay. As it's now the norm, it's nearly half an hour long. The 9th song is, at first, another 31 minutes of the same, but it wraps up with a beautiful piano melody over the ever-encroaching hum of the void, harkening back to an earlier track. But this is nothing compared to the next song. Again, it opens with nearly 20 minutes of ramping up intensity before suddenly slowing down to a simple synth rhythm that lasts nearly 2 minutes. What happens next is simply amazing.
You say I'll be happier if I lie and let you teach. But what's in it for me? What's in it for me?
This melody took me off guard. It's beautiful. It uses a motif established more than 10 hours ago as the first song of Volume 3, except this time it's different. It has lyrics. There are likely many interpretations for both the lyrics and the usage of the melody, but here I'll share my personal take on it. It features Patricia lamenting about how she used to be with someone else, before another set of lyrics come in.
Drums came in, you ain't see that coming.
And the two voices fight for volumes, with the usage of that melody harkening back to the 3rd volume, reminding the listener of happier times and the hope of return, as well as the accompanying sorrow that these days can never be returned to. They're over. While we're here, there's something I'd like to quickly mention. On the Bandcamp release of these albums, the 3rd volume's opener actually has the lyrics for the first track and MP3 metadata. They duet for several minutes before the built-up tension begins to unravel and the song fades out to a soft and hopeful melody. Before leaving the listener with this, bringing TECHDOG full circle. So, what's next? What could the 77th track, the last track, possibly have in store? What's next is the only proper send-off that TECHDOG could have possibly received. It's even longer. It's even more experimental. It is perfect. The final track starts off with a highly risky move, a single flat sine wave tone. It's harsh. It's uncomfortable. It lasts for 5 straight minutes. After that, another tone joins in. This chord lasts for another few minutes before another instrument, which I believe is a string instrument of some kind, comes in. This chord made here is a nice one. The stringed instruments build. Another sine wave comes in. Playing a wondrous little melody. It is very serene. The discomfort has vanished. Another deeper tone comes in and bounces from ear to ear, adding an air of tension. This is it. Gradually, more and more instruments come in, each with their own tones and feelings and identities, building up and up to something exceptional. More and more experimental sounds and textures and instruments are added. The song is building to a grand climax, well earned by the previous 12 hours of music. And as it nears its end, building to a point of surreality, all begins to fade around a single warbling, building sine wave. And just as it reaches its end,
Stop. Try again.
it's over. The behemoth that is TECHDOG has reached its end. So, what does it all mean? How does it tie together? There are many ways that this work could be interpreted, but I'd like to present my personal take on the whole thing. In my eyes, TECHDOG represents identity. The first 4 volumes represent the positive attributes that one may have: cheerful, curious, happy, the carefree, hopeful tones of the track present in this third of TECHDOG represent that. The cheerful character on the monochrome album cover supports this, exhibiting happy, cheerful behaviors. However, this isn't all. As I mentioned, the dark undertones inserted throughout are very noticeable and seemingly being hidden and covered up by the other layers as it reaches its end. The middle third is all of that falling apart. This is not happy anymore. It is the end of the world. The songs are fragmented, unsure of what they are in Volume 5, and they're attempting to pull themselves back together in Volume 6, resulting in harsh, chaotic tracks of raw noise. It's legitimately hard to listen to, both at face value and with this idea of them trying and failing to put themselves back together. But finally, at the end, it's successful and the result is beautiful. It's 4 hours of angst and stress being let out in a harmonic fountain of noise. But that noise at the end, from the beginning of the song, reminds you that this isn't over. This cheerfulness is not the status quo and you shouldn't expect more of it. The 7th volume is a culmination of both of these ideas. The album art now has color. I believe the significance of this lies in the fact that it isn't black and white. I don't mean this literally, although it still applies literally, but figuratively. This volume is a culmination of the previous two representations of the human mindset and emotion, representing that we can't always just be happy or sad, as that would be lacking dimension and complexity. Even if they're ideal or not ideal, neither are rude. We're more than just our happiness or our sorrows, or something beautiful that grows from the mixture of the two. We shouldn't just acknowledge one and let the other fester inside of us. To do that would be to fake who you are and to put up a facade. And in that way, it's no longer black and white. TECHDOG 7's contents exemplify this. Featuring some of the deepest and most personal tracks of the whole work, they transcend music and represent the humanity gained from both of these sides of the human condition. This especially shines through in the last track of TECHDOG 7, directly exhibiting how one tone is boring and grating, but as soon as more join in, it gets more pleasant and complex. The same applies to these ideas of the human condition. Considering just one aspect of yourself is to consider yourself as shallow, but by introducing more layers of varying character, you become more well-rounded as a person. And that's where I believe the underlying of TECHDOG is, presented through 12.5 hours of ambient, haunting, beautiful, terrifying, melancholic, and experimental music. Thank you for watching. This is completely unscripted. I have just finished editing all of the video that was before this, and now I am making a conclusion, kind of. So before I continue, I would like to acknowledge the fact that there are definitely themes and leitmotifs that carry between these that I missed, and there were some that I didn't miss but didn't mention. Apologies for that. There are a lot of them, but it's good to leave some up to you, the listener, if you'd like to interpret them. Also, I'd like to note that I have not listened to a lot of Patricia Taxxon's other music, because this was her first album that I listened to, but it is very good, and I would recommend listening to all of it. I'm saying this again because it is true, you should listen to it. So this is the first video essay that I've ever made. I don't know if I'm going to make more, but I watch a lot of video essays, and it's kind of been my dream to make my own for a little while, but everything that I'd ever wanted to make a video essay on kind of already had one that was better than anything that I could have come up with. But when this came out, my mind was just coming up with theories and ideas for what it could possibly be about the whole time, and I was like, hey, I should make a video essay about this. And according to the Google Doc, like 3,400 words later, here we are. So yeah. Oh yeah, everything up until this point was also scripted on a Google Doc. I did deviate from the scripts a little bit here and there, but for the most part it was scripted. Unlike this section. Chronos. Progress on the escape sequence is slow. Kind of run into a bit of a roadblock. I'm not entirely sure how I can bridge two different areas together, so that's kind of a pain. But yeah, thank you for watching, and goodbye.